All right, Erik, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So, I want to give a bit of context for our listeners here without going into all the details of what's happened between 2006 and now. But I guess to set the scene of where you're at, where Spruce Hill is, you quit your job in IT to start swinging hammers, as you said, in 2006.
Yep.
Got really serious from there in 2009. I guess first year in business, like where were you at in terms of the projects you were doing in your team?
I think I was building fences and I got really excited if I got a bathroom reno or something like that. It's pretty small stuff.
I love that. Amazing. And now in 2024, you're here, team of 16, dominating the North Shore of
We're
Vancouver.
trying. We're trying. Yep.
I love that. And I know that you say you're one of the most organized construction companies in the business. How has that helped your growth, or what's been so pivotal about how you run your business?
I think, I'm a data guy. My background is computer science. And so I've always liked to have information to make decisions from. So right from day one, I always knew that I wanted to know how profitable we were on each job. I wanted to, make sure that our projects ran smoothly. And, our customers honestly have been the most influential on how we do business because after every project, we do a debrief with our clients and ask, what went well, what didn't go well, what should, start, stop, continue. And every client has given us like a little something along the way to help us polish things. And I don't think it is, requires a degree in rocket science to realize that if you want to grow your business, you have to have an organized business. If you're, pushing paper and getting out your abacus to do your accounting, you're going to have a tough time growing in this day and age.
Yeah, and one thing that I've always admired about how you work is, how, yes, there's data driven, but also very process driven and thinking about things in a very systemized way.
Yep.
I'm curious, I guess, if we can dig into that particularly with how you manage clients and their projects. Like, what are some of the hard lessons you've had to learn along the way?
Hard lessons. Probably the hardest lesson that I've had to learn is how to ask for money, and not to be afraid to ask for it. I think a lot of people, or at least seeing from my own personal experience and speaking to younger contractors, I think a lot of people are afraid to ask for payment. And that can really hurt your business, especially when you're starting. Certainly having systems and whatnot in place to make sure things go smoothly is critical.
Yeah, so when you say, asking for money, like how does that break down on a practical level?
Well, when I first started, you asked me what I did way back when. I was building fences, doing bathroom renovations, and eventually I, started doing interior renovations. And I was always gun shy to ask for money because for whatever silly reason I had in my head, I shouldn't be asking for money unless I've done some form of work. And the fact of the matter is that invoices pile up really fast. And if you don't have cash in the bank, and if a client decides to say, well, I don't want to pay you, sure, you can like go through the lien process and try to like chase down the money and whatever else. But who has time for that? Like if you're busy chasing money that's owed to you, how are you gonna have time to chase new business and engage with new contacts to garner new business?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I know that part of that, I guess, is being proactive. So how do you figure out, deposits? What's the system that you guys have there now so that you are getting paid upfront or paid at a frequency that makes sense?
Yeah, so we take what we think is going to be the highest week. So certainly one way to make sure that you get paid is by sending your clients regular invoices. That's a pretty smart thing to do. I choose to do weekly simply because, on larger projects, the bills can add up very, very quickly, and you can find yourself in the red very, very quickly. We look at historical projects and we kind of sort of try to take what we think is the average of the higher weekly invoices, and we use that as what we ask for our deposit. And the idea being that theoretically, at no particular time, we won't be out of pocket is what we're aiming to do from the get-go.
That makes sense. So you take a deposit, you're doing weekly billing. How does it work if you are going over budget, or like, does that happen? How do you manage that side of the project?
Does that happen? It's construction. I mean, we have had a couple of projects that came in on budget, believe it or not. It does happen, but it obviously doesn't happen or very frequently. We we've found that you have to have, like, just because you're invoicing once a week, pardon me, you also need to have some sort of report to tell you what the financial health of the project is. So over the last 17 years, we developed, I mean, I'm a little bit biased, of course, but I'm going to say second to none reporting for construction, and we're able to very quickly see where we're going over budget or if we're going to go over budget simply by looking at where we're at in the project and seeing how much we have left in the different cost categories. Again, we've developed 36 or 37 different divisions over the years, and under each division, there's anywhere from 2 to 8 subdivisions to help break down costs and make sure that we've thought about estimating for each different aspect of the project.
That's awesome. And I am curious, I guess, was that something you've always done from the beginning, or?
Oh no. No, there's been a lot of trial and error. And again, that list has changed over the years with new technology, new building code. For example, we never used to have HRVs as one of our cost codes that we budget for. And now, I mean, you can't build a house without one. Same thing for exterior insulation. That's now far more common practice than it used to be. So, we've had to add that into our budget list. And there's also things that I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, to be honest, but there's certainly things that were on our item list that we've removed just because we stopped using it. Like, it became not in vogue.
And I know you joked about, needing to have everything on a scrap of paper sort of thing. So when you're looking at costing and budgeting and all those things, what tools are you using to make that easy?
Yeah, so we use the two pieces of technology that we use the most heavily are Smartsheet and QuickBooks. Currently, we're using QuickBooks Enterprise, but future state is hoping that we don't need to and we can actually use the QBO, because I've customized Smartsheet so much so that I don't need QuickBooks Enterprise anymore. But yeah, we've created really, really easy to use templates in Smartsheet that allow our project managers and our clients and our design team to all see everything about the project. I always go for within 3 clicks, but generally I try to have it within 2 clicks. So you click your mouse 2 or 3 times and you'll be able to find the piece of information that you're looking for, be it a selection, be it how much is left in the budget for something, or how much is left in the project. I mean, again, Smartsheet offers so many automations to automatically let clients, trade partners, project managers, myself, know of milestones that have been missed or milestones that are coming up, budgets that are going over. It really, Smartsheet is a very useful tool for me.
And was that something that your team adopted right away, or how did you get your team involved in looking at projects and, not just having that visibility, but actually using it?
It took a little bit of convincing. I'm not, I'm not gonna lie, and I think being an owner of any business, you have to have the steady hand and kind of see, what the future of your business is. And I knew that having some sort of project management tool was going to be critical for the success of our business and our clients. And so it took a little bit of time for the guys to buy in to using Smartsheet, but honestly, not much because they just found that they didn't have to think so much and that they weren't dropping as many balls, and it just made their lives easier. They had to get a bit more comfortable with technology, which made their lives a little bit more difficult, but that's a short-term thing. Like, I mean, even though we're old dogs, we can still learn new tricks.
I love that. And I think that brings up a good point because a lot of times in this industry, you're working with your hands. You're not necessarily someone who loves to embrace technology. How has that been different for you? Like, what's your view on technology in this industry?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm like unique because I know that there's several other contractors out there that have a similar background, but I have my degree in computer science. And so, that education gave me a really solid foundation to understand project management, risk management, the parallels between developing software and building a home are many. It's so similar. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, as builders, we're primarily problem solvers. And so that's that's how I kind of look at that. And, in order to solve problems more effectively and efficiently, you got to use technology. And it's my heartfelt belief that if you refuse to adopt to technology, you are going to find yourself out of business in the next 10 years. It's
Mhm.
going to be adopt or die.
So what are the some so what are some of the things that you do to keep up on technology and like what's coming in the industry?
I mean, for me, trade shows are really helpful. I love going, and it was fun connecting with you at the Builder Show in Vegas. I think it was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard to, it doesn't feel like last year. It feels like 2 or 3 years ago in my life right now. But going to builder shows is really the best place to get on top of that sort of stuff in terms of understanding technology, just exposure. There's really no other way to get there. If somebody's looking for, first steps, take a typing course, take an Excel course. Um, you know, Typing to me is one of these things where I don't know why it stopped being taught in high school. It feels like it has, but um, if you can't type 50, 60 words a minute, it's going to really hinder your ability to be a productive entrepreneur, right? Emails need to be typed. I mean, of course you can dictate, but if you have the same experience as I do with dictating into Siri, it's not always accurate.
Yeah, and as the wife of a high school teacher, I can confirm there's no typing class, at least
It's
where we are.
ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's such an important skill. Well, why don't we take a second and think about, because we've done business together and I've seen how
Mhm.
Reflective works. You guys have a very slick CRM where you're managing potential leads and you've got a bunch of automation and reminders and that sort of thing going on in there. And so, um, you know, because of my background, I've been able to make Smartsheet work as a pretty good CRM. It's not a out of the box customer relationship management tool, and it's not perfect, but the price is right and it works pretty well for what we do. I mean, it's probably somewhere in the 90th percentile of excellent, which I think is, I mean, find me another tool that is perfect. I'm sure you have your issues with what's the system you use?
It's high level as the
Right.
software,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that brings up a great point. Obviously, technology and all these tools, you can get a tool for everything. It's great, but unless you have a system and process behind that, it's not going to solve anything for you, really. How did you go about finding the right tool or customizing the tool to really work for Sprucehill?
It's straight up trial and error.
Yeah.
Invested literally probably over the last 17 years, hundreds of hours using different pieces of software. And honestly, how I've got Smartsheet set up has been highly influenced by interfacing with other pieces of software. And I've recognized things that the other piece of software is doing and being like, I can make that work in Smartsheet. Like I can use Smartsheet to make most of that functionality work. And so, I when I started out, I tried UDA Construction Suite. I tried CoConstruct. I tried Builder Trend. I've used Streak for my CRM. I've used another one. Yeah, I think it was called ProsperWorks and they changed the name to Copper. I was so offended by how dumb the name change was that I stopped using the software. It was really good though. I just hated the name so much. I'm like, what does Copper have to do with CRM? Like, this
Oh,
is idiotic.
they
And it's
should have
just such
had
a
you in their focus group.
Oh, dude, I just thought it was so dumb. But they did it anyways. So I think they're still in business. It was a really cool piece of software. It plugged into Gmail really nicely, which is what we host our email system on.
Right. Okay, so you tried all these different tools,
Yeah.
borrowed things that you liked from them, and is it that is it most impactful in being able to like manage projects and see where things are, or like what do you think is most impactful about the setup that you have?
Well, the tools that we've developed really help us to have a high level look as to, how much business we have to go through over the next month, 2 months, 6 months, year, almost 2 years now, which is pretty cool. But then it also allows us to really drill down and look at the day-to-day activities that are required for each project. So, what I tried to really focus on over the years is figure out the stuff that matters. I mean, as trite as that is to say, but I think that's probably the most important thing that we can do as business owners, both of us, honestly, is going through the world, getting inspired, going to some seminar or session and being like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing, and being totally inspired to do it. And then you take it back home and 2 or 3 weeks later, it's like, I mean, it was cool, but it's not that cool. But then sometimes you get that one nugget and it's like it's a complete game changer. And so I think, I think one of my strengths as a leader is to recognize the good nuggets and the bad nuggets. And I mean, it's similar to the age old story about recruitment and employees. You know, hire fast, or sorry, hire slow, fire fast.
Mm.
I mean, the number of times I've talked to employers, at least half of my close friends or entrepreneurs, and the number of times where they finally let somebody go and then the rest of the team starts barging into the office saying like, dude, I can't believe it took you so long to can that person. It's like, well, if they were that bad, like, let me know. I don't want to keep somebody that's useless around. Like, dude, come on, help me out here.
So true. And why do you think that is?
Why don't people want to say something?
Yeah.
Oh, nobody wants to be responsible for somebody's ability to pay their bills. I mean, it's totally understandable. It's just frustrating as a business owner.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that over the years you've gotten a lot better at hiring and also knowing when to let someone go?
Definitely a lot better. Am I perfect? Not even close. I don't know if I'll ever be perfect, but I mean, certainly how I deal with things now is night and day different from how I used to deal with things whenever it was, 15, 14 years ago when I first started employing people. So, yeah.
I know at Sprucehill, your team is obviously a cornerstone of your success there, and you've been
Yep.
able to double your team in the last year. Like, how did that happen?
I think by being genuine, our recruitment ads are not stuffy, they're not corporate, they're me. And, I always ask people like, well, why did you apply or whatever else? And they're like, well, I read the ad and it just sounded real. It didn't
Mm.
sound, GPT came up with the recruitment ad or some stuffy, sorry to my wife, some stuffy HR person that's, trying to, be very formal about it. It's genuine. And I think my approach to my team is to be really genuine. And I mean, we've known each other for almost a couple of years now, I guess. Um, and I've never been one to hide how I feel.
Mm.
I've been a part of business groups where people are like, well, as a leader, you should, never show fear, never show that you're sad or upset or anything like that. I beg to differ. Maybe not showing fear. That's probably not. That might be one to avoid. I'll have to concede that. But in terms of, not every day is a good day as the boss. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing that and being like, it's not having a good week. There's a multitude of different reasons why not. It can be business related, it can be family related. I think by sharing a little bit of who you are personally, it really helps to build a really strong culture within the team.
Mm. And how long have most of your employees been at Sprucehill?
I don't know the average. I could actually probably figure it out pretty quickly right here.
Or
Um,
I guess I'm curious about turnover. Like, have you seen that directly relate to how
I
committed
can
or how long people are with the company?
oh, just because I happen to have this sheet open, I can factually state that the average is 2.76 years. However, that 2.76 years includes one person that is 0.16 years on the team, another that's zero point 0.2, another that's 0.25, another that's 0.28,
Mm,
another that's 0.3, and another that's 0.43, and another that's 0.49. And those are all obviously recent hires, to your point of having doubled the team in the last year. We literally did. So we do have a fair number of people that have been on the team quite a bit longer. We've got a couple of people that are reaching their 10-year anniversary with the company actually this month,
wow.
which is pretty cool.
That is so
I'm
cool.
I'm pretty proud of that. I think that's really neat. I think it's pretty cool that these people choose to stick with me and keep me on as their leader. I don't see it as a one-way street. It's certainly a two-way street.
And besides that genuine approach that you have to leadership and the culture that's behind that, I guess, what are some of the things that really keep people around beyond that?
I mean, it's been my experience that people don't like. I mean, I just speaking from my own personal experience, and
Yeah.
I try to run the company similar to what I like and don't like personally. I never like being told to do something poorly. That never felt good, and that's just not something that we do. Um, I never liked having my paycheck be late or not arrive. So that's something that we don't do. Like I can be on a cruise ship in the middle of the Caribbean, and if there's an issue with payroll or something like that, I'm paying for whatever internet connection I need in order to be able to make sure that money is arriving in the team's accounts when it's supposed to be. I think that that is a hugely important piece of it. Regular raises, paying your people a little bit more than fair market value is going to make sure you find strong people and you keep good people too. I think a lot of the time some people lose sight of how expensive turnover is.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I can both speak to this. Right? Like to get somebody truly operational and operating at a high level of success within my organization anyways, it's a 3 to 6 month process.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't mean that they can't do anything, before that, but in order for people to actually feel comfortable with all of the technology and all of the bits and bobs, it's 6 months. And, the feedback that I've received from recently hired people is like, really, it's a year. And after a year, it's like, okay, yeah, that's
I
here,
get
that's
it.
here. This makes sense. This makes sense. Like it all starts to click, right? And I believe that that transcends any and all businesses. Sure, you can have this like nifty HR starter manual here, do this, that, but until people are able to really connect all the dots in their brain and understand how things work, they're just not as they're just not as effective. And I would also say not as happy, because it's not fun to be working and doing something where you don't feel like you really know what you're doing. Like it's really fun to be working someplace where it's like, yeah, I get this and I'm having fun, you know?
Yes, and the depth of experience and what you're able to contribute, I think, when you're in a place for a long time. But I know that's something, in paying your team well, I know that's something that with some of my business coaches in the past that I've come up against in terms of like, oh, you could hire someone for half that. I'm like, I don't want the employee that wants half that.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing, and I don't know if you do this stuff as well, but regular team building exercises, I mean, I take our guys out for and gals out for pints once a month. We're going to be going go-karting next month. We did a company camping trip last year, which I plan on doing again this year, because my second favorite thing after being a mentor and a dad and whatever else, family, is camping. Love it.
I love that so much. And when you
Yep.
do that, when you do those kinds of things, I guess I do see sometimes in the construction industry like a bit of a divide, I guess, between people that work in the office and people that work in the field. Do you
Right.
find that? Is that something
Oh
that
yeah.
has been an issue?
Yeah, and I try to make a bit of a conscious effort to make sure that people are sitting not within their comfort zone, at least for the first half hour, an hour of getting together, just so that people have to interact with everybody and talk with the people that they don't get to see, because like that's part of what builds a team, is having some form of relationship, even if it's small, with the other people on it. My job's
How,
much easier than yours. I don't have to think of questions.
how do you extend that culture, those relationships with sub trades?
My sub trades are invited to the camping trip and I pay for them.
Amazing. And are these people that you've worked with forever or like, yeah, how do you do that?
Uh, They're people that we're working with now. Some of them have been forever, but one of the things that my business coach, actually, pretty sure it was Colin Cox Consulting. Little plug for you, Colin. I One of the things that he told me was, when you are planning a company trip or you're planning on doing something with people that is a team building exercise, you really ought to be doing it with the idea that like whoever is on the team is going to be on the team for the next 5 years. And just because somebody just joined the team last week doesn't make them any less important than somebody that's been on the team for the last 5 years. In fact, one could potentially argue that they're more important, because this is going to be fresh blood. This is somebody that's going to hopefully bring fresh ideas and new energy and revitalize your team. And so, to that point, and that's why I answered it the way that I do. If we're working with those people, then we extend an invite. The other thing that I've done in the past, and I was hoping to have done it last year, but I was just too busy with getting my house built. But I've done an all trades talk, and what we've done is invited all of our trade partners to some general location and spent 2 to 4 hours with them, provided lunch and drinks and whatever else, and find out what are we doing well as a construction company to make your lives easy, and what are we not. And sometimes you don't get the feedback you want, but all feedback is good in my opinion. And sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. It's the nature of people, but it's always worth listening.
I think what I'm hearing most or what I'm taking away from that is that you're not treating those relationships as transactional. It's not like you're this outside company, you do this one thing for me. You're really treating them as a valued member of your team.
Well, don't they have to be? At least that's how I look at it. Because who's going to come back and fix a problem on a project? the person who's transactional and is just, a cog in your wheel, cog in your machine. Or the person who is like a part, like more than just a cog, like literally like a huge component of the machine. And what I'm trying to say is, if people know that they are going to have an ongoing relationship with you, chances are pretty good they're going to prioritize coming to fix things for your clients as opposed to people that are treated as one-offs. So, I mean, I look at our, and that's why, excuse me, that's why I choose not to call them sub trades.
Mm.
Like as a company, we made the conscious decision 2 or 3 years ago to avoid. I mean, it still slips out from every now and then because it's part of the business and whatnot. But we call them our trade partners, and we look at it like that. They are our partners. Like we cannot complete our projects without our partners.
And I think that's clearly a pillar of your success as well, whether they're an employee or a partner. Treating those people well has a ripple effect in terms of not only making them happy and keeping them around, but they are extending that to your clients.
Yep. It's accountability. And, I think a lot of people don't like it, but it's been my experience that most people do. And what I mean by that is I work really hard to hold everybody that I work with accountable all the time. Like I'm talking on a day-to-day basis. And accountable doesn't mean that you're criticizing or being critical of something. Accountable means being accountable. So if somebody does something great, hold them accountable for having done something great. Conversely, of course, if somebody doesn't do something that you're particularly happy with, hold them accountable. Because if people just think it's always going to be a free pass, they're not going to really feel fulfilled in what they do.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about a couple scenarios in my own business where I probably could have done a better job of that.
I think we
So
all can. Yeah. Hindsight's 2020, Crystal. Come on.
always. I guess in thinking through, the incredible growth that you've seen since you started in how you run a really organized construction company, any last words of wisdom for contractors who are struggling in running their businesses right now?
It's been my experience in this industry that if you reach out and ask for help, I have yet to find somebody that's told me to go away. I've never done that to anybody and I never would. Am I going to prioritize taking a phone call from another builder over a client meeting? No, I'm not. Facts. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to call them back and answer whatever questions they do or don't have and share things that have worked well for my business over the years and also share things that haven't worked well. So I would say don't be afraid to reach out to people from near and far and ask for help and ask for advice and, charge out rates, overhead and markup rates. Like, why are we all trying to, race to the bottom? Like, let's work together and, let's win jobs based off of ability and skill and, not try to win jobs because we're the cheapest.
Preach.
Preach on. You got it.
So with that in mind, Erik, I know our listeners are definitely gonna want to learn more about you and connect. So what's the best way for someone to reach out?
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, you can contact me through our website, sprucehill.ca. That's sprucehill.ca. Or you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Meta, I guess it's called now. Anyways, yeah, you can find me on all of those platforms. I think they're all either Sprucehill Contracting or Sprucehill is the tag name for those different platforms. So feel free to reach out. I will honor what I just finished saying in terms of if you reach out, I will get back to you. if you expect me to get back to you within a couple of minutes or even potentially a couple of days, then your expectations will not get met. But I will get back to you, I promise.
Amazing. And we'll put all those links in the show notes for anyone listening. You can check it out at beyondthetoolspodcast.com. Connect with Erik. And always a pleasure, Erik. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.